Welcome back in, Adjunct Professor at Montclair State University, Dan Geltrude. Dan, okay, so Whitty brought up how certain medications like anti-obesity drugs cost, $900 or more right here in the States, but 1/10 of that price in Europe, putting fault on the drug makers and the hospitals. He also brought up the Biden administration's policies like Medicare rate cuts and reduction in Medicaid enrollment that have caused some serious challenges. Dan, do you think we see prices lower in the healthcare world, especially with RFK Jr. possibly leading the Department of Health?
Well, this is a long-standing problem that our country has had, right? So let's break this down a little bit. The pharmaceutical companies are always taking the position that R&D costs and regulations are very, very expensive, and that is what is driving up costs. Okay, fair enough. But if you look at the profits versus what is a reasonable cost for the consumer, because that's really what we're talking about, right? So the companies that are providing coverage are saying, look, the costs are so high, we have no choice but to pass this along. Well, there's got to be a way to strike a balance here. Look, we already know from Obamacare that government-run health care is not the answer. But there's got to be a way to somehow come together. I hate to say that the assassination would cause change because we don't want to send that message. But if something good could come out of it, perhaps it is more reasonable prices for drugs and, of course, for insurance coverage.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a solution. I know a lot of people, they look to Canada and they say, oh, well, they have universal health care. That's what we need here in the States. No, you do not want that whatsoever. You need to take a deeper dive into universal health care and see what happens. People wait months to years to even see a doctor in some occasions. So let's move on a little bit. So EV and hypercar sales, they actually hit a record 20% of total U.S. vehicle sales last year, marking a milestone for green vehicles. While gas and diesel powered still made up the majority of sales, they actually dropped below 80% for the first time in modern history. Now, it's up in the air at this point how this year will go, as the Trump administration may roll back some of those EV and emission policies. Danny also talked about getting rid of those tax credits when it came to EV vehicles. What are your predictions for electric vehicles this year?
Well, I don't think that we're going to be moving away from drill, baby, drill. That's for sure. But look, we could have a balance of both, right? And it seems today the theme is a balance. I say this, let the consumers decide what type of vehicles that they want to drive. For me personally, I have charging anxiety, so I don't want to be forced to have an EV, and I'm not a big fan of all electric vehicles. However, the hybrid, I really think that that is something that could have a significant impact in terms of growth into the auto market. So will EVs grow? Yes. I think that trend will continue. But again, I like the hybrids.
Yeah, and I like how you said I don't want to be told what to drive. Once they made, the Biden administration was pushing all of these mandates and they wanted everyone to be EV by a certain year, that turned everyone off. No one wants to be told what vehicle that they can and cannot drive. Dan Geltrude, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So fantastic seeing you.
Thanks, Alex.